Hi there. Just recently I picked up a Holga 120N offline from Lomography, or at least the packaging would lend as much. Now, for about 2 years, maybe a little past that at this point, I'd hasten to admit I've been a 35mm dweller, and I figured I would branch out into the medium format. After looking at the Hasselblad's Pen-Max medium format cameras and Yashika's, I went ahead and settled for the Holga. And it's often referred to as a toy camera or a scamera, I think maybe some might refer to it as. It's very cheaply made, but it's kind of garnered a cult following, and I intend to be one of its devout followers and sort of express some thoughts on it, and hopefully kind of teach you guys a little bit about it and some of the tools and accessories along with it. So the lens for the Holga is actually plastic as well, as most of the camera is, and it's 60mm, and on the top of it, kind of wrapping around it, are 4 different icons to indicate where it can focus at, to kind of help you. One dude would indicate 3 feet, 3 is 6 feet, and then a large group is about 18 feet, and then a mountain to indicate 30 feet out and on to infinity. At the bottom of the camera there actually is a bulb mode switch from the normal mode, which is what I use for all of my shots. I hope to kind of play around with the bulb mode later on. On the back of the Holga there is a 12-shot setting and a 16-shot setting. And with the 12-shot, which I ended up using for my test roll, is going to be 6x6, and the 16 is going to be, I think, a 4.5x6 exposure. And if you're new to medium format like I was, I didn't really have any clue as to why there was a window, but actually on the back of presumably all 120mm film, there's actually little numbers to indicate what frame you're on. And of course the Holga, you're going to have to manually scroll with the sort of right advance knob, I guess I'll say. So by the Holga's very nature of being cheaply made, you're going to find a lot of light leaks be introduced onto your exposures unless you take some pretty serious precaution. You'll see some photos that I'm going to sort of show here that I did not by any means shoot on a Holga, but someone I assure you did, and they really made sure that no light leaks were getting into it. However, of course, as you'll have it, some people don't really mind that and actually like it or invite it. And I wasn't sure myself where I kind of lined up in this, so I kind of chose an interesting path not to completely mummify it, as I've sort of termed it. You'll see some cameras, and I kind of just covered the back window that we just talked about, and I'll show very quickly kind of what I did. I will admit now I used some pretty strong Velcro. You'll actually see in the box, or I think looking back, I don't know if I filmed it, this is like an industrial grade Velcro, which can like hold up hammers in a workshop or something. Wasn't really aware of that. I'd recommend, if you are going to use Velcro for this back window, because although it helps you see your film, that would also help light see your film, and ideally that's not hitting the back of the film and bouncing around in the camera and somehow finding its way on the front end of it. I don't think that's what happened on some of my exposures. I'll show you a few of mine which are kind of irredeemable. Unfortunately, kind of turned out not how I like them at all. But before we go over that, I went ahead and I loaded in some Portra 400 film, which took me way longer than I thought it would. I had to actually end up taping it onto that sort of feeding spool. And at that point, I was ready to start taking my photos.
So yes, for anybody counting, that of course wasn't 12 exposures, but the rest of them were pretty much victim to pretty egregious light leakage, and the one was just kind of a flatly bad composition. Didn't really realize the fisheye lens would scrunch up the clouds like it did in that one. Um, but yeah, I didn't really introduce the fisheye lens I used. It was a 35 millimeter Holga fisheye lens, but you're actually able to fit that on the 120 just the same. Um, I don't know. I guess you could pick either way if this kind of worked, kind of that cheat code or not. It of course doesn't seem to expose a sizable portion of the film as you would have it, given the sort of the change in size. But honestly, I don't mind cutting the corner. I think it's still kind of neat, but yeah, you just kind of got to expect, I guess, it to be a little more scrunched up than what you might realize. Overall, I really appreciate you watching this video. For those die-hard Holga fans, I'm sure you've made it here to the end. Everyone else, they're just fake. All right, see ya.